I'm Tami McCarthy.
And I'm Becki Fleischer.
We're two soul sisters on the front lines of growth and transformation, getting real about it all.
You know, sometimes we're totally in our woo-woo groove, walking on light.
Yep. And other times, we lose our footing and end up tripping over those very same rays of sunshine. That's woo-woo in the real world. On this show, we're giving you an inside look at all the healing practices and mindfulness that we use and how we integrate them into our lives.
Yep, we're talking to interesting people who can help us along the way as we look at some of the woo and wild things that make us go,
We hope that you'll join us, living woo-woo in the real world. Well, welcome back to this new episode of Woo Woo in the Real World. And I'm so excited because our guest today is Holly Conetta. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course. We've been so looking forward to getting this on the books for some time now. And now we're getting closer to our Soulful Sound event that we're all doing together, right? So we're going to be talking about all things sound today.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a previous episode, Becki and I have talked about going on this weekend-long sound retreat, right?
Sounded amazing.
And yes.
It was incredible.
Yeah, I know. No pun intended, right? And so the show is all about exploring different modalities, right? And how we as humans can really balance the physical world with the spiritual world, because those things might come up against each other. And we might be able to tap into some tools and tips and, like we said, modalities for just kind of dealing with, everyday life, but also not letting it so overwhelm us, right? So that, we lose the joy or we lose our balance or we're not living the life that we truly desire. And sound and healing touch is what you're trained in. So we have lots of questions about that. Right, Beth?
We do, absolutely. And we started off, for our audience that's listening, Holly just did a little mini sound bath for us here in the space. And so it really does help shift the energy and set a different tone, because heading into any podcast, we're always setting up and running from wherever we're coming from. And it was a really, really beautiful reset. And you can really feel yourself just relax into the space. So thank you for providing that for us.
So it's a really powerful tool whenever you're meeting with a group of people to do anything together, that you come into the space, right? Because everyone's running from somewhere and everyone has their list of things to do or something that popped up right before you left. So it helps bring you into the physical space, but then it also brings you to the same vibrational level, right? There's this thing called entrainment. So it helps relax you, bring you into the space, leave the stress behind, and then it joins you. So you can be much more collaborative when you are all vibing at the same level. So
Entrainment, that's the word. That's a new word for me. I like that.
There you go.
Entrainment. We can definitely talk about it, because that's one of the reasons that sound healing works so well.
Right. So tell us, before we dive into all things sound, because I know Becki's got her list of questions and I have my list of questions, but let's just unpack this a little bit. But I also want you to tell everybody, who you are, first of all, right? So you're a mom with some kids, so we want to hear about that. And then also what brought you to this journey of being a healer.
Okay, so who am I?
You can start anywhere you want.
Know, right?
Who are you? And who are you now?
Well, So I raised my children in Pound Ridge and Bedford area, and that's how I met you guys.
Yes.
And I started being very interested in energy therapy or energy work, and I started quietly developing my skills and my experiences on the side. And it wasn't until my kids were out of the house that I really started bringing it out into the community in a larger way. But I'm still a mother, and we did move to Greenwich, so we no longer live here. We're living a different experience, but I'm now focusing, my kids are both out of the nest, and I'm focusing my time and energy on further developing these healing modalities and then sharing them with others. My journey, when I was sort of introduced to the woo or energy work, was in 2001, post 9/11. So the summer post 9/11, I had a post-traumatic breakdown. And I sought out traditional counseling, who basically recommended that I take a pharmacological approach to it, and that just didn't sit well in my system. And so I was feeling really sort of at the end, and spoke to someone who talked about, and I had gone to my traditional doctors, that's first and foremost, but I was unhealthy and ungrounded and really at the bottom of a well and overwhelmed, very overwhelmed. And someone told me about a Reiki master and suggested I go to see this Reiki master. So in that appointment, I experienced things that were beyond what I could have imagined. Two really profound things happened. One, first of all, I felt like a huge lead apron or weight had been lifted off of my torso.
I just got full body chills when you said that.
Wow.
My hair is like standing up on my arms.
Apron I was wearing. Sort of like this ones the dentist put on you, but really heavy. So it disappeared, and it kind of like, the vision was like, it turned into sort of bubbly light and lifted off of me. And then the second one was I had this amazing sense, getting chills, and maybe a little teary, of like warm honey warm honey being poured over me, and this great sense of warmth coming down my body and flushing over me, and then a knowing that my grandparents were present with me and that they loved me so profoundly. And I don't know how I knew it was them. There were no words. There was no vision with that. There was feelings and knowings. And then when I left there, for weeks afterwards, I felt like my heart was beaming out energy.
Wow.
It was so powerful, and the shift was so dramatic. That was my introduction.
Wow.
And it was big.
Yeah. So where was that, in New York City?
No, it was in Katona.
Oh,
wow.
Is that person still there? Because
I know, right? Who is that?
That began my journey. And I am so interested and continuing to learn, but it's been 22 years that I've been trying lots of different modalities, understanding more and more why I was feeling like that. Learned some really important things. One, that I was an empath. And that I was carrying much more than my own load.
Right.
Sure, that heavy,
Yep, and I needed to learn how to manage that. But I just, the journey continued, and I've done all kinds of things, shamanism and theta healing and past life regression. And I think it's so interesting that you talk about defining, because I would say my definition of woo is something beyond what you can conceptualize or comprehend or know or define until it happens, right? So there's this stuff that happens that if it hasn't happened to you, people will often be dismissive, like, oh, that's too woo-woo for me.
Correct. Yes.
There's a couple reasons why I think people do that. I think because it brings up fear of the unknown, right? So there's a big fear of the unknown.
Right.
And it's not that it's necessarily unknown to society or to man, it's unknown to you. And we have our own sort of definitions of what is true and what is true to you. And a lot of that we learn through our experiences. So if you haven't had an experience with a Reiki energy worker who shifted, or any energy modality that shifted you to do so profoundly, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
the power of it, despite what it appears to be happening.
Right. So you're just reminding me right now of something that I heard earlier this week, right? Which is, if we're only defining things, right? And I don't want to get caught up on the define, but I think it's more about what you were saying in terms of you were desperate to try anything, right?
Right.
And in your experience and in your belief system, you tried all the things, right? All the things that programming told you, or society told you, or traditional medicine told you, right? But somehow at the end of your rope, you heard this and you remained open and you went because you were desperate, right? But even beyond that, and this is the thing that I heard earlier this week, it's like, if we're only running things, whether it's concepts or experiences or other people or whatever it is, like just inserted into that blank through our own experience and our own belief system, well, how limiting is that? I mean, we're just limiting ourselves, because in the universe, it's an infinite set of possibilities, which I don't know what they are, right? But the universe does, or whatever is
information out there. Yeah.
Limitless source energy, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're just these little blips of, humans having this spiritual experience. So, that's why for me, I remain totally curious about each and everything. I will try each and everything, because time is an illusion. What's happening is an illusion. We are constantly creating our own realities. So, I mean, who am I to say, well, then that's the end of the reality? I want to see what else, I'm just going to keep on going. Like, what else is there,
I mean, Every person's reality is their own, and every person knows what they know until they know something else. Right? There's just this fear of, what if they tell me something I don't want to hear?
Yes.
And that's the fear popping up. And,
so how do you answer that question if somebody said that to you about, what if they tell me something I don't want to hear?
I would say they won't tell anything you're not ready to hear.
Yeah.
And you get to choose what you feel is true to you, and just take it in and give it some time, because also it might make sense down the road a little bit, which it often does.
Yes, exactly.
You both know. I've experienced, you have a reading, you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. And then it comes up and you're like,
sure enough.
That's right.
That's what they were talking about.
And at the end of the day, these people they're healers. That's their mission. So they're not trying to bring something to the table that's going to dysregulate you or to throw you into crisis. That's not what they're trying to do. So I think that's also, for people who are listening and might be afraid of that, I mean, they actually come with that opposite intention of trying to frighten you. They want to heal.
Yeah.
I say this experience, it's like this unwinding. So that was one experience, but I've had other experiences which have brought me into really difficult, uncomfortable situations.
Right.
And I couldn't get there without having that experience. Into the dark or into the deep or into this uncomfortable energy.
Correct. Yeah.
But once you move through it, it brings you to another side, which is more comfortable than what you were prior to that. Sound healing is an energy tool. And so is healing touch. Those are the two modalities that I've studied. And basically, I'm trying to help people to allow themselves to relax and release the energy impressions that they're holding onto.
Right.
So what happens is often you need someone to help you actually let go, a tool.
Yeah.
Let go of what you're carrying. So a sound bath is cleansing you of old energies, because then there's room for new awarenesses, new energy, new understandings. And even if that means like, oh my God, this really hard thing came up, there's an energy for you to move through it if you choose.
Right.
But when you are way down, your energy is frozen and constricted.
Right.
It's another way of kind of looking at it, actually.
Yeah, which is actually a great way to think about it, right? Also I was struck when you were talking about, kind of the cleansing of the energy field. It would be so awesome if like, as we went through our day, right? And let's say you just started with clean energy in the day. Like you woke up in the morning, you felt great, your energy's clean, your chakras feel amazing.
Everything's alive.
Yeah. But as you moved throughout your day and you came and you interacted with different people throughout your day and whatever was happening for you, right? And imagine like, wouldn't it be so cool if like, I don't know, I'm seeing like multicolored like pom-poms are just like stuck to you based on like who you're interacting with, right? And then I'm the visual person, right? And at the end of the day, it's like, damn, I've got to get all these covered fucking pom-poms off of me, right? How do I do it? Right? Because I want to just start fresh the next day, or I don't want to be Imagine if you never did, and like by the end of the month, you just like, you don't even see yourself anymore. You're just pom-pom lady. Right?
Yeah, you're just covered.
You're just covered. So, you know, these tools are about, yes, energy and cleansing your energy and making sure that, you know, you're the healthiest version of yourself, because when we are out in the world, how are we going to interact and deal with the world, right? And for me, I want to be my highest self. Sometimes I want to be my highest performing self. Like what do I need to deal with, right? Which actually isn't, you know, it looks probably dopey to the outside world, you know. It's like you're sitting in this little shop in this corner of Pound Ridge, and when, you know, I'm not really solving too many problems here, but I am also just, you know, trying to spread a little sunshine. But there are people that do far more important things. But again, I know a lot of high-performing people that actually do a lot of this stuff so that they can be at peak performance, so that they can operate clearly from a mind, body, spirit perspective, and make critical decisions, you know? And that varies depending on, you know, the person and the profession that they're in, but...
So actually, I'm going to back it up, because I know what you said, like, how do you walk through the day? How do you walk through the day, right? So energy is always, first of all, people are walking around, we're all broadcasting energy, right?
Right.
And energy experienced through the ear is sound, right? Through the eye, it's color. So energy experienced through the ear is sound, and we are constantly being bombarded with sounds that are either harmonic, soothing, or can be dissonant and jarring. And so you're walking through your day, and you could have woken up, done your grounding meditation, aligned your chakras, be like totally in the flow, having a beautiful day, and walking down the street, and someone honks their horn, right? And then you're jarred and you're shifted. Your energy's shifted. Nothing to do with you. This is just life coming at you. You walk into the coffee shop and there's a line, and someone turns around and says, "There's always a line in here, and I'm so sick and tired of waiting around. Why can't they be more organized?" Negative, right? So these are examples of things that come at us. Or, you know, your sibling calls and, you know, is sad about something. So here's another energy that could be coming at you, shifting your energy. So this happens all day long. And what we need to be able to do, if we can, is when we get hit with something that is dissonant, is to shift back, right? And you can do that. Many people don't even realize they've been shifted into something else. You know, like if the horn honking at you has jarred you, you have just changed your vibrational rate. You have just changed the energy. So you can shift yourself back by breathing, by thinking, going into your heart center, and just imagine your heart opening and energy flowing. It's a very useful tool, because what has happened is you just clenched your energy together. When that sound, that abrasive sound came, you clenched and you held. How to resolve that is to relax, open the heart, and breathe. So the way sound healing can be used as a tool to help us with our vibrational energies and to keep us being fluid and flowing is that the body resonates with the sounds that are being played on the different bowls. And they're played in a rhythmic, soothing, circular, expanding way. So what happens is we reflexively entrain with the energy that is around us, right? So if someone comes at you with love and smiling and, you know, heartfelt warmth towards you, you will be joining me in that vibration. You can see a physical response. If you smile at someone, they smile back. So the bowls are an expansive sound, right? So the sounds vibrating from here, like I said, are harmonic, but they have a circular movement to them and they expand. So it gets bigger and bigger. And when you entrain with that sound, you become expansive. And it's rhythmic, which is soothing and relaxing. Some of the studies that have showed this occurring is when you put, you know, a newborn next to a newborn baby, their hearts will start beating at the same time. You put a newborn baby on a mama's chest or a father's chest, the hearts sync. So your brain entrains with what it hears, and your energies entrain and move to what they're hearing.
Beautiful.
And like you said earlier, and that's the space where things can open up, and then you might be able to see other things that might come up, where you might have the capacity then to hold information that you maybe couldn't hold before or couldn't see before because there was too much constricted around it.
Right. We have got to be able to relax. And when we're going through our day, we spend so much time holding, physically holding, just by the nature of being upright, you know, and carrying things and doing things and going through. So we are holding tension to keep ourselves upright. So we have got to, at some point, lay down and relax completely to allow the body to deeply relax, right? And it's at that point, when we are deeply relaxed, that the body is able to repair and restore and release, right? So let go of the day, if it's the day, right? If you're sleeping.
And so when you do a sound bath, I'm sure that there is a method to how you perform and in what order. And so how did you, first let us know, how did you train to do that? I mean, because you are trained.
I am trained.
People should understand you don't just find Tibetan bowls and just start playing. Like there's an actual methodology here.
So this is kind of a woo-woo thing because of story. So every day in the real world, I'm a mom and I have kids and I'm going to school and traditional life and family. And I joined this book group, and at the beginning of the book group, these ladies would play 2 or 3 bowls. And I just loved it. It was just like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the beginning of the book group. And they do it for that purpose, bring us to the space, get us all connected and relaxed, right? So everything can flow better, the conversations and the thoughts around whatever we were reading. So there were 2 women that would bring their bowls, and they were talking about their teacher who would come from India twice a year. And he was coming, and the first time I couldn't go, I was like, oh, that could be interesting. The second time I was able to go, I really didn't know exactly what I was getting into. What I knew is I really liked these 2 women and these bowls that they had, a couple of bowls. So I went to this training in New York City, and the teacher's from India, Satyabrat, and he has the International Academy of Sound Healing. And he comes to the United States. He traveled around the world, but he comes to the United States prior to COVID, I think 4 times a year. So I went to this training and loved it and purchased 4 bowls, which were very expensive. And didn't know I was going to do that. And came home with my bowls and decided that 2 weeks later I would take the second training, which was several more days and even a bigger commitment and even more bowls. And I just was called to doing it. I wasn't sure why I was doing it. I hadn't planned to spend that money, a lot of money, didn't know what I was going to do afterwards. And so I got these bowls and I just love playing them. I just am so drawn to them. And that's how I got started. And what I started doing is in this community. After I had my bowls.
And your training.
My training. And I did practice with another person for quite a while. We would practice on each other. I'm like, okay, I need to now play all these bowls that I have, this investment. I need to go out into the community And I remember just thinking like, who is going to come to this? I don't know, but I'm just going to send it out to my group of friends and that I knew through school events and sports. And I'm just going to put it out there.
Right.
And have faith. And guess what? A lot of people came.
Wow. Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I bet.
And coming up against that fear, would anyone show up?
Right.
And then would they like it as much as I like it? And having people show up and having people affirm it. And after doing that, slowly for 2 years, I think in 2019, I committed to doing one once a month, barring the times when it got shut down, like COVID and life situations. But I've been doing it now for 7 years.
Wow.
And there is a very specific method that I use when I do a big group concert. They're different from a private sound healing session. But in the beginning, I always play what's called the mind relaxation set. And that is to entrain the brain to go into a very deep state of relaxation. And each bowl is a different size, and each bowl is hammered and tuned. So these are made very specifically with a specific combination of metals, and then they are hand hammered to create a certain frequency. Within each bowl there's a range. There's like, it's not a single note, but it's on a C scale, for example. And so I play in the beginning bowls that have the frequencies of the beta, alpha, theta, and delta states of consciousness, which in the medical world, when they are doing studies to see how people sleep or how they react, beta is when you're awake and running around. Alpha is when you're going through your day and you have a daydream, like you're driving and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, how to get to the stoplight? So you're daydreaming, you come back, but you're functioning.
That's alpha.
That's alpha. And then theta is that state where you're going into, either you're falling asleep and then you have a thought, falling asleep, thought, or when you're going into meditation and you have a thought. So you're starting to get very expansive, right, in this theta state. And each brainwave state is slower than the previous one and more expansive. So, you know, beta is like this, alpha is like this, theta is like this, and delta is like this, and this is no thought. And this is deep sleep. So then after that, I play another set which are tuned to vibrate the same levels of the 7 energy centers in the body. So these are the chakras. And so chakras are just simply energy hubs. We have energy centers in the body that go up our central channel. So energy is flowing from the earth up through us to source and back down. There's a constant energy flow. And what happens is when I play, for example, the root, which is the largest bowl, and it vibrates at the same rate, speed, or frequency, my root bowl vibrates at that same frequency as the root chakra. So every chakra has a different speed that it's moving in. And it's a circular, when it's healthy, and energy is flowing, a chakra moves at a nice, symmetrical, rhythmic, fluid, round, circular rate. And each chakra, the energy needs to flow around. It goes around the chakra and out, and then up to the next one. So it's like this little pattern. It's going out, and then it's rising, and it's meeting with the next chakra, going out, out, rising. So every chakra. And so when I play these bowls, the root, I play my root bowl, and the root energy goes, oh, I know you. And then they start moving together.
Right.
So that's the pattern I do with my bowls. And then I brought in other soothing instruments that I've picked up. I've been trained in the Tibetan bowls. That's my primary instrument that I play. But as you know, you both know, I've brought in a lot of other instruments because sound and soothing sound is healing to us. Sound is medicine.
What about for people who get in there and they get into that delta state and they're asleep?
It's great.
Yeah.
It's fine. because actually when they're asleep, you release all the musculature, all the holding in the muscles, right? We need sleep. You really need sleep. And the energy is moving through them, whether you're asleep or awake. I mean, even if you can sit in a sound bath and still have a wonderful experience, it's not quite the same because your body can't fully rest, but it can be very impactful. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, which is awesome. So, I mean, it feels like a natural time to also tell people, if you're still out there listening to us, you've hung in and you're really fascinated by what we're talking about, using sound to move energy through the body, to relax and to restore your energy, so that you can function better and more peacefully and put good vibes out there in the world, then you're definitely our people. So that's part A. And then part B is, I mean, we would love for you to join us if you're local here in our area, because we will be joined by Holly for our upcoming Soulful Sound experience on April 19th. And we'll link to that, of course, in the podcast, because this will air right before that event. And that's amazing. And you can meet Holly and you can have this experience. So we've done a number of these now. And it's interesting because, you know, we find whatever space is available that we can. And, you know, more and more people seem to keep joining us. And, you know, it's not just the sound healing, which is wonderful and amazing, and it's part of the experience. But we usually start off, you know, with a circle. And for this particular event, it'll be the night before the new flower moon. So we have collaborated on a really great evening that's going to start out with Becki and myself, and of course Holly. But we're going to also start off leading the circle, and there'll be some components to that to sort of help us transition from our day and set the space. Yeah, so it's a beautiful evening that's going to have a start and a middle and a beautiful culmination with Holly's sound concert. And you definitely will leave relaxed and restored. So we hope people can join us for that. There are only a couple of tickets left, which is amazing. Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to say, why I like doing these community sound baths, is we really need to be able to be in community and be deeply relaxed, to connect to one another. Like, we know we need community connection, but bringing everyone together and being able to deeply relax, where you're not doing anything. Right? There's not many opportunities that we come together that we can just really deeply relax.
It's true. It's so true. It's so true.
You're able to do that, the connection is just so strong and so easy.
Look, I mean, we talk about it as well. You know, we have to find the tools to just let go of the thinking during our day, to create spaciousness during our day. And this is just one way that we can do that. And, you know, it's good for not only you as an individual to have the experience, right? I mean, just think about how you will then go out into the world, but also just how you're, you know, able to feel within your own body, right? And so, you know, that's really what this community is all about, and what we hope to reach more people and say, hey, come join us, right? Like, we hear you, and if you're struggling, and if you're overwhelmed, or if you just want to bliss out for a little bit and not think about things for a couple of hours, that's a great intention also.
It is.
I was gonna hit on that point, because I think for a lot of people, especially when you're kind of new and you're tiptoeing into the world of these different modalities, there's a privacy factor that you want, because you don't feel secure, you're unsure. And so it might sound intimidating, you know, this talk of like, oh, being in community in a circle, does that mean I'm gonna have to talk to people and like expose something about myself or share, God forbid, you know, like what I'm feeling. And that's not at all. So I'm glad that you did mention that about it's really, you can come and still have your own individual experience, but the point you're making is that just by being there, you are you're almost magnifying the impact, because you're there with all these other people. And so you can still very much have your own experience, and there's nothing that would be exposing about it, and still get that benefit of the community, which is so important in healing.
Yeah, it's just a lovely shared community experience. It changes,
really is.
Changes the vibration of the community, you know, of your own, and in turn, everyone, and then we bring it out, you know, and share it.
Yeah.
It's really, really
So,
easily.
Speaking of sharing, oh my gosh, can I share this story? You can tell me yes or no. Okay.
You want to get woo-woo? You want to get really woo-woo now?
We do.
Okay.
Super woo-woo.
Okay, super woo-woo. Here we go.
We've known each other for a bit of a time now. I mean, I don't know exactly, but I'm thinking maybe like I've known you since before COVID. And I've been here 5 years. Yeah.
I met
Okay.
you when you first opened the store.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And had a conversation. I was like, ooh, she's one of my people.
Yeah, exactly,
She's
right?
one of my-
Yeah. So that's how I'm starting to define my life now. Is it like before COVID, and now it's before Kahlo,
Right.
or during Kahlo?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
A new one.
Yeah. Anyway, so Holly and I were at this public event. It was a music event. And we weren't at this event together, but then we bumped into each other, we hung out a little bit, we chatted, and then the band was playing on the stage, and I lost track of Holly, but we were both very close to the stage. And then at one point, I saw her like off in a distance, and then afterwards, when the performance was done, and people were sort of, you know, dissipating and talking or whatever. But, you know, we somehow found each other again, and we started talking. And she's like, wow, like I was watching him perform, and like his heart is pretty much out of his body, or he's out of his body. If I don't want, you'll tell me what you said, but it was something like that, to the effect of like, she could probably only tell me that, and all these people, and I would be like, "Oh, I got it. I got what you're experiencing and what's happening." And but what struck me about that is you were so perplexed, but because you didn't know how to handle it, you didn't know if you should do something, and I said, "Yeah, let's go." I remember taking your arm, and we went behind the stage to where the security SUV was, and he was about to get in the car, and she was like, shouldn't I? And I was like, yeah, go ahead, because you're gonna go, why didn't I do it if the truck drives away? And so Holly approached him and asked, and he said yes, and I was sort of off in the distance. But why don't you explain to Becki? Because you need to hear this woo-woo story, because that's what we do.
I love a story.
We're like, I've got a woo for you, right? But you know, look, this is not only about like us and our woo-woo experiences, but you as a healer, right? And then where do you draw the line between I want to help this person, can I help this person? He has to give me permission, and ultimately what happened. So yeah, why don't you tell our listeners, it was really fascinating and amazing, and explain to Becki.
Yeah, so this particular incident, so there was a singer who was performing, and I mentioned before I'm an empath.
Yeah.
And I could feel his energy at this time, and I could feel he was very ungrounded. Let's see. So he was feeling very ungrounded. I was feeling what he was feeling and experiencing. It was very dysregulated. It was very heavy, sad.
Because you were pretty shaken. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's a very strong feeling. So
and it's interesting because it's at a big public venue.
Yeah.
So how did you know it was him?
Because I knew.
You just knew. It was just like you were just drawn. You're like, I can feel this. I can tell this is coming here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So this was like the fourth time this has happened to me. So I did have a little bit of a familiarity. So when I was feeling these feelings, and why him and why this time, because I'm being used by some kind of information that I'm supposed to help this person at this time. These thoughts, these feelings are being put in my system to activate me, to move me to action, right? Because emotions are energy in motion. So energy is moving through my body, signaling you need to take action, right? You need to do something. So thankfully, I had learned that in the past. So I knew I needed to say something to him, but because he was a performer and is on a stage, and I didn't know how to get to him. And So I actually at one point got up on the stage and was standing in the back. I just had this desire to put my hand on his heart and his back. And when you do that, that's very grounding. It brings a person into their body. This is through energy work.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to give him this message that I was being told to sort of give him, to assure him that he's where he's meant to be and that it matters what he does. So I got up on that stage and I was standing up to the side because he kept taking breaks going in and out, and then the security told me to get off the stage. I was on the side, but even
like,
getting up there,
move it, lady.
I did. I mean, I was standing very quietly on the side, and
You're like, no, I've got healing work.
I didn't even say anything. I was like, okay, because I'm just trying to do what I'm being guided to do. But I'm like, oh, I tried. So afterwards, I ran to Tami, and the feeling was still my system was agitated, and I was like, okay, this is the deal. And I'm really not sure what to do. And so we walked around the back and waiting for him to come out and get into his car.
Of course, everybody's asking for his autograph.
And I just stood there, and I at one point, I actually had said something to, anyway, that doesn't matter. This manager who shushed me away.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, okay, but this opportunity with Tami, so we went back, the manager's still there trying to get him into his car. And I just went up and said, can I put my hand on your heart and on your back? Would that be okay? And he said yes. So I put my hand on his heart and his back, and I just held him, and I did what I was being guided to do. And then that was it. And he got in his car and went away. And then it didn't matter to me anymore. So my system was at ease. I did think about him, wondering, and I did get a little more information that kind of made a little more sense. But the woo-woo part is I'm being activated to give a message to someone, and it's a healing message.
Well, the thing that I was going to say, which was just a funny thing, but somebody said this, and I must have watched it, or I don't know, I follow people and their things. But every person you have sex with, you still have their energy imprint in you, in your own energy.
That makes sense.
It's an energy exchange. Right. Yeah.
But it's not, I'm sure most people think, well, I slept with this guy when I was 17 and I'm now 55.
Right. They remember it.
I don't know that makes sense.
The brain is experienced as a memory.
Yeah.
Right? So they remember sleeping with that guy? That's the
right.
energy imprint in the brain of the guy you slept with. So the energy's there. It's stored as a memory.
Yeah.
And
and that's the thing, though. It's like you don't necessarily want to be. You don't want that energy. You got to clear some of these past lovers out.
But it's also it's the past. So it's there, but
well, you transform
be fluid
it
around it.
Yeah.
You can be if you can just be fluid. It happened, and it's
Yeah.
Right. One of the things when you were talking about all of those experiences, which thank you for sharing all of those, because I'm always fascinated to hear stories like that. And so I appreciate hearing them, and I think it does normalize, because I think people do have intuitions like that to say something or to do something, and then you're like, I can't, it's weird. Just this morning, and I'm sure now why I saw it, because of this exact conversation, I saw it, was it Carolyn Miss? Is that how you say her name? She was speaking, this was, I don't know, 40 years ago, or it was a long ago tape. And somebody just, was randomly in my Instagram feed, not even somebody I follow.
Random, not so random.
Right? And she said, how can you tell that it's actually intuition and not just your brain telling you to do something? And she said, oh, that's very easy, because intuition, it's a very agitated feeling.
Oh, intuition, okay.
It's an energetic stirring that's not going to leave you alone, and it doesn't feel so comfortable because you have to act on it for it to then move. Right. And she was like, fantasy, your brain will create fantasies, and that's always comfortable. So if you're super comfortable doing something, it's probably not like an intuitive hit telling you to do it. An intuitive hit is telling you like, this feels I might get exposed, or there's some feeling that's contracting you a little bit. That the only way to move it, like you were saying, then I felt better once I took action. That's the only way, because you have to transform that energy.
I love
it's
that.
Real energy versus contrived, made up in your mind, thought telling you to do something. Energy, it'll have that charge to it, and it
Yes.
won't
Right.
leave you alone.
And that's why intuition often saves us, right?
Yes.
From harm.
Yeah,
Right? That's
sure.
what our intuition
Yes.
is for.
Yeah.
That is, I love
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But we all
I
need,
don't
everybody
understand.
needs a little help dialing into their intuitive
Oh, yeah.
sense,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Some people are really good at knowing it, hearing it, however they experience that, right? Some people are really good at it, and some people not so much, or just keep ignoring it.
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause
you
you're
have to
confused.
quiet yourself. You have to be quiet.
Oh,
to
really
hear it
quiet.
For sure.
Sometimes, or it gets louder.
Mhm.
And some, but it is. Those situations. When I look back, there were little situations leading up to it.
Yes.
Where I had to say things. It's always delivering the message, but they were much easier than these. And that last one was the hardest because prior I've had connection to all these other people, personal connection.
Right.
And
That's
this was
true.
just a person up on
Yeah.
the stage, and I was like, oh boy. But I knew if I didn't take action, I would be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting. And the voice that I hear, so I've been hearing it for years. And when my father passed, I would hear him, and I continued to communicate with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it wasn't my voice. I knew it was his voice, and not remembering.
Mm.
And I learned kind of the difference then. And then these different people delivering that I didn't know, their voice coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. You can tell a difference. And if you ever hear a thought that is leading you towards something fearful in an egoic way, that's your thought.
Yeah.
Like in an egoic way. But if it's in a body feeling way,
Right.
where there's an activation in your energy, it's not something that you're thinking of and being fearful of. It's an energy. That's the intuition. And it's the energy it's trying to move. Yeah. And if you don't let it flow, it'll make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's what she was saying.
That feels like a good moment to say, if we can help anybody with their flow,
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
or if you've enjoyed this, let us know in the comments. However, please join us on April 19th, where Holly will be doing a beautiful sound concert. I mean, she's got just a couple things behind her here if you're watching on video, but if you're just listening on the podcast, Holly brought some bowls today. But when she does the sound concert, I mean, out of any concerts I've ever been to, your setup is just so beautiful. So you have the Tibetan bowls, you have the crystal bowls, and you have lots of other types of instruments that you bring in. You even play the flute, right? Yeah. So it's really beautiful. And so we'll be doing that at the Bedford Historical Hall on April 19th. We'll put the details and a link in the comments or in the show notes. Yes.
So looking forward to it. This is our first one of the season. So
It is, yes. Springtime.
Yeah.
Always good time for a sound concert.
That's right.
And Becky's going to be singing a beautiful. Tell us about this medical. Not medical. No.
Is that what you say? No.
I know.
Tell us about it, Beck. What are you going to be doing?
I'm doing a musical meditation that I actually wrote it. So, and that's what, it was funny you talking about the letters and people kind of channeling. My songs, I have songs that channel. I had one that channeled this morning. You don't know when it's going to come. You have to totally obey it. It's, it derailed my morning. So,
Right.
But this one I had been thinking about and wanting to do, and just to have the quiet. It's the quiet. It's the real quiet space where I had nothing one evening, a whole evening. And I was able to get one to come through. So I've got a song that I'll be doing as we settle into the space and before
That's
Holly.
going to be such a treat.
Yeah.
I got a little taste of it, and it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
So I'm super excited for everybody to experience it. So thanks for joining us,
Holly.
Holly.
Thank you. This was
really amazing.
great
really awesome.
conversation.
It's too bad we couldn't think of anything to talk about.
I know,
I know,
right?
that's the thing.
In my mind, I was like, we could have a whole nother episode and just keep going on all these things.
We're geeking out on the
I
woo-woo.
know,
But
we
until
really
next
are.
time,
Yes.
we'll see you in the real world.
Mhm.